Hi, I'm Femi Okay.
And I'm Malika Bilal. Is free speech under siege in Cambodia?
With several radio stations forced to close and a newspaper under threat, critics claim the government is cracking down. We'll dive into the debate today on The Stream. All the news without fear or favour. That's the slogan on the masthead of the Cambodia Daily. But a threat by the government has the newspaper's editorial staff fearing for the publication's fate. And the Daily isn't the only organisation under threat.
Authorities shut down an American NGO, and at least a dozen radio stations have suspended programming for fear of losing their licenses. The government says the organizations have broken the law, but opponents see the moves as an attempt by Prime Minister Hun Sen to extend his power ahead of elections next year.
So what's next, and will there be space for dissent as the election gets closer? Joining us from Cambodia to discuss this, we have Jody de Young. She's the editor-in-chief of the Cambodia Daily. Varak U, he's the founder and president of Future Forum, that's a public policy think tank. Musakua is a member of parliament and the vice president of the Cambodia National Rescue Party, one of Cambodia's opposition parties. And Vanak Huri is a member of the ruling party and the Undersecretary of State for the Ministry of Interior. He's also the president of the Union of Journalist Federations of Cambodia. Hello, everybody. Good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Jody, your publication, in a couple of days' time, you might be closed. What are you doing right now?
Things are looking pretty grim right now. We have made many attempts to talk to the tax department about what's going on. So far, we have no agreement. We're still without due process. We still feel like we are being boxed into a corner that we just can't climb out of. People talking a lot about taxes, but the Daily certainly thinks that this goes well beyond taxes and that this is a threat to free speech, to freedom of speech in what could be one of the most important years in Cambodia, the upcoming national elections, first in 5 years.
I'm looking at the Tuesday page for the Cambodia Daily, heading towards Wednesday right now, and you're covering your own story. How do you cover your own story?
Very carefully. It's not a position any team of reporters wants to be in. You never want to be your own story. When we say we report the news without fear or favor, we're trying to apply those same, that same, ideal to our own coverage. But it's tough. How do you write about yourselves when you're facing imminent closure and it feels like an attack that there's just no way to respond to because the government holds all the power?
Well, Jody, support from community members might help because we're seeing a lot of it online. This is Noan, who is speaking of the media outlets that are, some would say, under target. Noan says they provide critical, unbiased news and facts happening without fear with their professionalism. They're trusted and reliable sources for the audience. Another person, this is Sofo, who says these are some of the best sources of independent reporting and monitoring available. And so they are, of course, enemies of the quote-unquote people, or the elite. So Vanak, do you see it like Sofo does here? Is this about these media organizations being an enemy of the elites, or is this about taxes?
I think the Cambodia Daily should be happy for the work that they have been done in Cambodia for nearly over 20 years. And we have to separate two things about the independent media and the tax invasion. And I think you should not be worried. There's not end road yet. If you understand the process, you still have the chance to go to the court. If you have the proof that you can defend yourself, I think should not be worried. And it's about paying tax. That's the issue.
What do you make of, go ahead, Jody, you go first.
Well, he talks about using the courts, using the rule of law. But the rule of law here It's not like in many countries where you feel like you can use the courts to, to help you out of a situation when you've been pushed into it by the government. And so we would like it to be so, but it just doesn't work that way here in Cambodia, certainly not in these difficult times.
Vinay, why would you close a publication because there's a dispute about tax? Wouldn't you work it out and then collect the tax?
I think that's confusion. There's no message and measure to close yet. I think the issue is about the tax department called the Cambodia Daily to pay tax. And as you may know, in the civilized world, tax evasion is it's not good and it's a crime. But there's a process. Like I say, there's a process that you can prove yourself that you abide by the law. And there's a process that you've been in Cambodia for 20 years, and you should be know how this should deal with. And I also want to clarify that the issue of the Cambodia Daily is not related to the election. That's two separate things that need to solve in two different ways.
So I hear what you're saying there, and there's someone that might agree with you. This is Lu Xiaochen, who just tweeted in a minute ago saying, "Well done, Cambodia. These U.S. NGOs and the Western-supported media are just agitators trying to make turbulence and control Cambodia." So that's one person's view. Another person, though, on the other hand, and Virek, I'll give this to you. Jack says he doesn't agree. He thinks it's clearly part of a wider campaign to muzzle independent media and civil society organizations ahead of next year's elections. And I bring that one up, of course, because Vanak just mentioned the election. What's your take on that, Virek?
Well, I think the bigger picture is not is the fact that it's actually not Cambodia Daily that is now the only target. The more important targets would be the more than a dozen or so radio stations, local radio stations, that actually carrying independent radio programs throughout the country. That would have far greater consequences, and I think the attention paid to the Cambodia Daily as well as the NDI, for example, is actually much deserved. But I think a lot more attention needs to be paid to the closures of the radio stations. But also, I think the continuing using of the law as a way of rule by law is ongoing. Is it a bad thing? I would say yes. I think we all would agree that I think we want rule of law. We want the law to be fair, to be just, but also to be reasonable. But I think in the case of the Cambodia Daily, I think it's pretty, to me, it's pretty obvious as an observer, because I think there's due process that need to be protected, but also more importantly, I think the burden seems to be given to the accused themselves, the Cambodia Daily in this case, to prove they're innocent. And this is also what's happening with most of the cases in Cambodia as well, where usually the courts do not present proof, and usually put that burdens on the defense. And in that sense, I think the Cambodian understand that I think in the case of Cambodia, long-time observers like myself would know that I think you're pretty much guilty until you're proven innocent, and as long as you actually been accused by the states, and I think that's actually very concerning.
Democracy in Cambodia, and this is pre-election time. I agree with Virek totally on the independence of the court. And look, who do we have as the president of the journalists in Cambodia? A person who is very connected to the government, and the Secretary of State at the Ministry of Interior. So how can you call that independence of the media? And I am really, really sorry that we are really at the critical moment, which is 12 months before election, and all the silencing of the media, independent media, silencing of the NGO. NDI is well known in the world for their participation, their contribution to democracy. And Cambodia badly needs democracy, true democracy. And without an independent media, without the opposition, without critics, how can we move toward democracy? This is critical moment, and the Cambodian people needs free and fair election.
So something that Virac just mentioned was the NDI. That's the National Democratic Institute. That is backed up as a US organization. The other thing that Musakua mentioned was talking about Virac as being part of the ruling party and also part of the journalism profession as well. Virac, isn't there a conflict of interest as you as a journalist and also being part of the Ministry of Interior? Who are you supporting? Are you supporting journalism or the ruling party?
I think people need to respect a right for the association, and people need to respect that, you know, it's a freedom. And I work for the legitimate government, the government that, you know, elected by the people. And Madame Uzuhu should understand freedom for association, and that's our objective and mission is very clear. And
the reason
yeah,
why I asked,
and democracy has been
pro-government
process
person as the head of the Journalists Association. That's the point that I want to make. As the head of the anti-corruption unit, who is the personal advisor to the Prime Minister, as the members of the court, they are really related to the government.
Okay, so
independence at all?
Musakua, let's actually listen to what Virac has to say, because it is what he is. He is part of the Ministry of Interior, and also he's a journalist too. Conflict of interest?
No,
allow him to respond, Musakua. I'm interested to hear his response.
As long as my mission is fair and serve for the people, you cannot attack personally with misunderstanding of freedom of association, and you try to twist people that I'm biased to the government or biased to the people. I serve Cambodian. I'm not used the term democracy, do things illegally, and attack people. People use freedom. I respect freedom is important, but don't use freedom to attack people. Same thing with you use freedom of speech under attack in Cambodia. No, it's happened for nearly over 30 years that some people use freedom to attack their own country.
Okay.
That's a really good, yeah.
Okay. Malika?
I want to bring in this perspective because a few people mentioned elections. So this is Kevin Doyle, another person. He says the closure of Cambodia Daily, potential closure, of course, numerous radio stations that have already closed, appears coordinated action by the government to silence dissenting voices ahead of the 2018 election. But there's someone on Twitter who disagreed with him right away. This is Cambodia Guide. They said, let's say the opposition wins in 2018. I expect nothing but more of the same. They just want their turn at the trough. Musakua, what do you make of that? That you're a member of the opposition party. This person doesn't think things would actually be that different.
The people of Cambodia know exactly what they want. Just 3 months ago, we held a local election, and the difference between the ruling party and the opposition is about 4%. So the next election, 2018, is very key. There is more than a chance, a fair chance for the opposition to win the next election. And that's why the silencing of the independent media, of NDI, that's why, and then the jailing of human rights defenders, that's all this is happening because of the results of the election. It shows very well how the Cambodian people want Cambodia to be.
Okay.
Change.
Yeah, I think, let me jump in here a bit. It's very important to understand. I mean, one of the things I might agree with is actually, even if the opposition is to win and take over power in 2018, I expect many of the journalists to still have a good fight to protect their freedom of the press. I expect for pro-democracy and pro-human rights groups to be needing to continue their work, and I don't expect anything to be resolved overnight. But in that sense, I agree. But at the same time, I think the current attack on press freedom as well as freedom of speech is it's certainly, it is what it is. It's definitely an attack, and it's definitely creating a chilling effect on the population. There are arrests being made of Facebook users. You have your normal Facebook users who is expressing themselves on Facebook. This is a newfound freedom for them. A few of them has been arrested. So in a sense, I think the feeling is, I think. The feeling is one that I think of self-censorship. I think self-censorship is definitely the greatest tool of oppression. I think self-censorship is also would have an impact on whether the next election could be considered free or fair.
Jody?
Well, the Daily's writing just about those ideas. Front page tomorrow about how Facebook, social media overtook radio and TV in the past years as the one place where everyone shares news in Cambodia, and the fact that the government is going well beyond traditional media and looking at social media and the way that they can use that as a way to identify critics, to go after critics, and when you can so easily push a newspaper aside. And there's no one paying attention, right? So we're writing about those stories, and I think one of the people in the story that we'll have in the paper tomorrow says you've got one woman in Phoi Phet who's picked up for criticizing the government, the prime minister. There are 10,000 people behind her, but if there's no free press paying attention and writing about that, how will anyone know?
Vinayak, I want to share something with you, mostly with our audience, but I'm really interested to see your reaction to this. So we have the Cambodia Daily, which is told to pay up their taxes or be closed down. We've got Radio Free Asia, Voice of America, Voice of Democracy, all under threat of being closed, if not already closed. Two Khmer language radio stations are ordered to close earlier this week. And then we have 8 letters to radio station owners that they should be closing down. 19 radio stations taken off the air for their programming. The National Democratic Institute. This is a long list, Vinayak. Why all of these in a month? How do you explain what is going on? And they're all either media organizations or organizations to help develop democracy in Cambodia. There's a link, there's a thread. Why is this happening?
I think your term threat and close is to confuse the people. Right now, there's no process to close yet, but they already closed some of 600 media outlets in Cambodia that they
Why?
do their work illegally. That the government now is working to modernize and legalize all the institutions, not just the media, not just NGO, but if you count the number of NGO in Cambodia, over 4,000 and over 600 media outlets, a few media outlets that not abide by the law. And now I think that it is time because Cambodia need to protect their own sovereignty and to promote the rule of law like any other country. You can't, in any country, in America or other country, I'm sure that they won't let any illegal institution operate within their own border.
So they're all breaking the law, and they all happened within this 1 month of August. And that is what the reason for all of these organizations to be told they're either at threat of closing or they should be closing. Malika?
Well, Jack here on Twitter sees something a little bit differently. He's looking, maybe taking a little bit of a deeper dive. He says this is, on a broader scale, a product of years of softly from donor countries not wanting to rock the boat. All the while, less scrupulous financial backers, namely China, he writes, have come along offering more cash with less human rights purse strings. So now the countries and organizations, for all their flaws, that have the integrity to say something have no leverage to affect change. Vinayak, does foreign influence or interference play a role in this, do you think?
Well, we are a small country. We're a developing country, a poor country, one that is actually needing about 50% of our national budget from foreign aid. In the past 20 so years, most of the money was coming from the West, which that would means that there's room, there's space for civic engagement, for space for the press, a space for people to try to be involved, to participate. There's a lot of progress. I think to discount the what has happened in the past 20 years in Cambodia, I think would be an injustice to all of the positive things that's taking place. But I think the most to take away from all of this is actually a growing Cambodian young, ambitious middle class who's actually demanding more from their government. I think the empowerment of people is taking place. I think that's why it's also seen as a threat to the establishment. But also, I think the rise of China is actually one major factor. We're seeing this across the board. I think the influence is definitely across the board, from press freedom all the way to other economic drivers. You know, you see. I think.
Totally agree.
You also can't discount the rise in authoritarianism. I mean, I'm an American, and in my own country, we have a president who's been attacking the press. It emboldens people in other countries to do so.
But I think I think we also need to understand. I think the Western leadership, the decline in Western leadership, the mess that's taking place in Europe. Europe is not paying attention to what's happening in Asia as much as it used to be. America leadership certainly is felt, at least the lack of it is actually certainly felt here as well in Cambodia. And again, the rise of China is actually giving the confidence to many regimes within Asia to feel that they can actually do whatever they want, or at least get away with some of the measures they're taking. And this is actually what we're witnessing now. I think Cambodia is only one country, but if you look at the whole region in Thailand and other countries within South Asia, I think we're seeing the same pattern.
And this is why it is so key. It is so key for Cambodia to have real, free and fair election and true democracy. Cambodia can contribute tremendously to ASEAN, the region, if it is a country, a nation that is truly democratic. And that's why we look forward to competing with the ruling party on a fair ground. The radio stations that have been closed, why we are wondering, why is it that these stations are the stations that sell airtime to the opposition, to the independent media like Radio Free Asia and Voice of America? Why? And the owner of these stations are asking the Ministry of Information to give them the fair explanation. That has not come up yet. And that's why it is so important. Democracy deserves a chance. And it can happen. And the people of Cambodia are ready for it. Why violate their rights? Why take away their rights to
Madame Musuhu tried to speak for herself and for her party, not speak to the context.
Really
the context now is to defend the media.
Mr. Kua, let me just hear Vanat Win, just the last 30 seconds of the show. We heard your point very clearly. Mr. Kua, just give us a moment.
I am really sorry. I am not speaking for myself. I am here as a member of parliament representing the people of Cambodia.
So guests, we are right at the end of the show. Vanak and Varak and Jody and Musakua, we are right at the end of the show. Let me just check in with Malika to see how the conversation's been going online, very early right now in Cambodia as we're doing our live show.
Joshua writes in, even if newsrooms shutter, journalists will still write, news will still get out. # demand press freedom.
Thank you, guests. Thank you, viewers. Thank you for our online community. Our conversation continues online always. # AJ Stream. Take care.